In this History Police video, I'm going to review Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk. I personally think that it is a masterpiece as a movie. But what is the movie truly about? It is about the evacuation of 338,000 Allied soldiers during the Second World War from the beaches and harbour of Dunkirk in the north of France between the 26th of May and the 4th of June 1940. The story is kind of remarkable because it also marks a shift in World War II. It marks, the defeat of France to Germany. And at that time, it was quite complicated. The Germans were going to go through the Ardennes and they were going to control the forces and defenses of the French. The French army was not expecting that from the Germans. They were not expecting the German tanks, to go through the Ardennes. The British had sent their troops to help the French. And here I want you to imagine all these young men that had probably never been abroad, and they arrived in the north of France and they tried to make their way down, but it's quite complicated. They're not sure what's happening, and the communication is quite bad. Then they're asked to actually stop moving towards France, but to retract and go back to Dunkirk, to the shores of Dunkirk. And then there's lots of not understanding what's happening, surely. There's lots of confusion. What is for sure is that the German army is making its way to attack the French soldiers that are left there and the British. It is an epic moment in Franco-British history. And it is even more epic because these soldiers, these 338,000 soldiers, are going to be rescued. But they're going to be rescued not just by the British army, though they did help a lot, but also by civilian boats. And here you have the solidarity, and you have also the French soldiers who, some of them, with included some British battalions as well, are going to sacrifice themselves to ensure the survival of the majority of the soldiers and of this young generation who was probably going to continue to fight anyway. Dunkirk movie is absolutely thrilling. From start to finish, you're in the midst of the battle. What I really like is there's no time to waste. From the first scene, you are in the battle. You are in the shoes of all these men who were sent abroad to fight one of the biggest wars. It's quite a short movie, especially when you look at the other films by Christopher Nolan, who were quite long, 2.5 hours, 3 hours, and here's an hour and a half. But you're in the midst of it, and you're completely, it felt like you're in it. And what I love as well, and it's also sometimes a bit hard because there are different characters and they're doing different things. Obviously have as well the airplanes and all the pilots that try to fight the Germans in the air to make sure that they were not, killing the people on the beaches in Dunkirk. And so here you have a real sense of solidarity. You follow different lives, different people. There's no one main character in many ways. And that may be in a way it's very good because it shows you that, it was not a moment to get attached to anyone. At the same time, I feel like it's the thing that this movie is a bit missing, is that you don't feel feelings or emotions, you don't connect with one of the characters really. Having said that, it depends obviously as well on your personality and if you're someone who is going to kind of have this type of feelings. From the critics, it is pretty clear that the movie does a very good job at making it as accurate as possible. There is this sense of urgency. There is also this evil genius of saying, oh my god, how are we gonna get all these soldiers from the beach to the big boats, to the big naval boats, to the big passenger boats. And obviously, as I said, lots of civilian boats and small boats are gonna go near to the shore, and some soldiers are gonna manage to get on it. But also there's this idea that the malls of Dunkirk, that is from the harbour, could serve as a way for the big boat to get some soldiers, and it's going to work. And it's a beautiful idea. It's a risky idea, but it does work. And you have all these soldiers who are saved and rescued on these moors of the Dunkirk harbour, and it's quite something to watch. And I love that here with Christopher Nolan, you're really in the midst of it, you're in the midst of the urgency, you put in the middle of a battle. And when it comes to historical fiction, when it comes to trying to bring back the past to life, I think here it does it perfectly. It is not in many ways just about fear and war, and it's about human beings trying to get their way into this new type of war. And it is so brilliantly done, and I love the urgency it gives, but also like the humanity that you can feel when you watch that movie. I think this movie is really, really well made and really well thought. And obviously, like, not everything is going to be massively accurate. There are some trends that were not created in 1940s, but were more like 1970s, and they appear in the movie. But at the same time, it's like these are minimum, like, kind of inaccuracies that are not going to change the story. So far, I think that he really followed the expertise of historians who know so much about Dunkirk evacuation, and he really tried to give people an idea of what it was like to be there. There were some French defending the western front of the city, and the rest was defended by some British battalions. Here we also have in that movie the sense of sacrifice. They do sacrifice themselves for the greater good, and there are some people who were scared about it. We have records and letters and memoirs, remembering that some of them were like, no, I can't do that, and trying to leave, and they were shot by their own men, by their own, comrades, because you couldn't go, right? Like, you had, life was not an option anymore, only death. And either you sacrifice yourself for the greater good, or you be shot by the men that you came with. And it's quite moving to have this kind of also brutality, because you can see the sense of like, I need to live. Why would I sacrifice myself? Why am I not one of the men who's going to get rescued? And it really shows that, because at war you have to have battalions who are going to sacrifice themselves for the rest of the army. It's just how it was, and it shows you the brutality, it shows you the violence, it shows you the reality as well of what war was truly like. The evacuation of Dunkirk marked a shift in World War II. You have Churchill himself giving a speech after the evacuation of Dunkirk, recognizing that his men had been rescued from Dunkirk. And he said, should the invader come to Britain, there will be no placid lying down of the people in submission before him, as we have seen, alas, in other countries. We shall defend every village, every town, and every city. The vast mass of London itself, fought street by street, could easily devour an entire hostile army, and we would rather see London laid in ruins and ashes than that it should be tamely and abjectly enslaved. This is a powerful speech, because it shows that, the threat of a German invasion in 1940 was very real. And it was so real that actually I have a book recommendation for you, The Battle of Britain, 5 Months Which Changed History by James Holland. This is an amazing book if you love World War II. I think you should read it. It is something that takes you really back into these pivotal 5 months of European, even world history. It is really the book to read if you want to know about the Battle of Britain. Overall, I really could not fault Dunkirk, the movie, whatsoever. I think it does justice to the men who sacrificed themselves for the greater good there, but also for the men who were on those beaches and who were rescued by their country. I think that we need more movies where it is more about humanity and the lives of these men than just about war, just being scared all the time and everything. I think we tend to forget the human side, and we have so many scenes in Dunkirk where we're close to these human side, where we see their emotions on their faces. I really hope you enjoyed that History Police video, that review of Dunkirk, and I'll see you next time for another one. Bye!